Kumbaya, my lord. This isn't just kumbaya talk. Purpose drives impact. Looking to empower up your day? Tune in to Evolve Together with Empower People on ESPN Richmond, powered by MikeKingBiz. Join me, host and Empower People founder Tiffany Joy Greene, MBA, as I bring dynamic leaders, change makers, and entrepreneurs to share their journeys, challenges, and successes while driving their purpose to drive positive impact and empower people. Empower People is an organization that provides education, connection, and support to mission and purpose-driven leaders to drive positive impact and empower people. Catch us every Tuesday at 5 a.m. on ESPN Richmond and join Empower People today. What are you waiting for? We even have a free membership. That's right, free. Visit www.empowerpeople.org. That is MPWRPeople.org. You can also visit us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Evolve Together. Welcome to Evolve Together with Empower People, the show that brings you inspiring stories, expert insights, and transformative advice on ESPN Richmond, powered by MikeKingBiz. I'm your host, Tiffany Joy Greene, founder of Empower People. Each week we dive into topics that are rooted in how purpose drives business and positive impact. Join us as we connect with dynamic guests, explore innovative ideas, and empower you to evolve and thrive in every aspect of your life. Stay tuned because together we can achieve greatness. Let's evolve together. To learn more about Empower People, you can visit www.empowerpeople.org. That's MPWRPeople.org, or find us on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. #Empower People. Now let's dive into today's show with our very special guest, Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan and Leslie Mehta. Jennifer McClellan entered the U.S. Congress in 2023 after winning a special election to replace the late Congressman A. Donald Oh my gosh, I'm going to mispronounce it, Jen. Can you help me?
McKeechan.
Thank you. A lifelong Virginia native, McClellan was born in Petersburg to parents who served the community. Her father worked as a professor at Virginia State University, and her mother worked as a counselor at VSU. McClellan attended Matoka High School in Chesterfield County, where she was a valedictorian. She earned her undergraduate degree from the University of Richmond, where she served as a charter member of the Railroad chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She then obtained her Juris Doctorate from University of Virginia School of Law. McClellan has served the Greater Richmond area in elected office for nearly 20 years. She was first elected to the Virginia House of Delegates in 2005 and served in that post until she was elected to the Virginia State Senate in 2017, where she succeeded A. Donald. I'm going to. Thank you. After his election to the U.S. House of Representatives. In Congress, she sits on the House Armed Services Committee and the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee. A principled and progressive legislator, McClellan has always worked to ensure Virginians' voices are heard in government. Throughout her 18 sessions in the Virginia General Assembly, McClellan passed over 370 pieces of legislation, including landmark bills to protect and expand voting rights, combat climate change, preserve reproductive health care, and enhance workers' protections and labor rights. McClellan lives in Richmond with her husband, David Mills, and their two children, Jackson and Samantha. And I always like to throw a fun fact in. So Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan is the first Black Congresswoman of Virginia.
That's right.
Woo-hoo. So Leslie Mehta is currently running. Now I always like to give a bio so everybody knows full well who we're talking to. So Leslie Mehta is currently running for Congress in Virginia, 1st Congressional District. She was raised in a small rural town in North Carolina with a population of 800 people and 0 traffic lights. She is the daughter of a corrections officer and social worker, both of whom instilled in her importance of leveraging your skills to give back. A determined child, Leslie worked hard in school and was offered the chance to complete a high school at the prestigious North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics. She later received her undergraduate degree at UNC Chapel Hill and law degree from Howard University School of Law. After a rewarding career as a litigator and then civil rights attorney, Leslie was named the legal director of the ACLU of Virginia. At the ACLU, Leslie worked tirelessly to protect the constitutional rights of all Virginians, regardless of their political beliefs. Leslie is a pragmatist, working with those who will work with her to effectuate change. That is why she is proud to have been appointed by both Democratic and Republican governors to serve our Commonwealth, first on Governor Northam's commission to examine racial and economic inequity, then serving on Governor Youngkin's Rare Disease Council. She has successfully marshaled support from both Democrats and Republicans in Congress to secure federal funding for Rett syndrome and other rare diseases. Leslie continues to advocate for meaningful change, broadening her mission with this run to flip Virginia's first congressional district. And now for a fun fact. Leslie doesn't know what I'm about to say. I apologize. We both know the late great Kim Drew Wright from the LWCC.
Yes.
So welcome to the show. Now
Neat.
everybody should have a firm grasp. My throat is tired. My mouth is dry from reading all of that, but everybody I feel needs to know your past. It's very impressive. But today we're not talking about the past. Today we're actually talking about purpose-driven leadership, which I know is important to you both and know resonates. So let's dive into questions and let's get the party started or the conversation started. So what both inspired you to run for public office and to serve? And whoever wants to chime in, we're very organic here.
Leslie, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. I'll tell you, for me, a lot of the work that I had been doing as a constitutional lawyer really inspired me to do more advocacy. And then in 2017, my oldest daughter was diagnosed with a rare disorder called Rett syndrome. And it typically renders you incapable of walking, talking, or having purposeful use of your hands. And I started working with legislators, talking. At that time, Senator McClellan was one of the people that I talked to about rare disease and Rett syndrome, and Abigail Spanberger's first run before she was even elected. I talked to her about Rett syndrome, and I continued that work, which led to talking to Democrats and Republicans on rare disease legislation on the federal level. And in 2021, my Brooke passed away from Rett syndrome, and I wanted to continue doing that kind of advocacy and bringing in more of the advocacy on the other issues that I'd been working on previously at the ACLU of Virginia, and the things that I just enjoyed discussing and wanting to make better for our community, like investing in public school education and making sure our schools are safe for our children. And that led me to want to run in this election at this crucial time, and hoping to be able to do some of that work for the larger community.
So I also got interested in politics and in government from my family, but a little bit different. I grew up with parents who were older than my friends' parents, and so I grew up on their stories about what life was like for them growing up in the segregated South under Jim Crow, growing up during the Depression. And so they both saw the best of government and the worst of government. I was also a huge history nerd, and the more I read and studied, the more I realized that at its best, government is a force that helps people and solves problems. And at its worst, it's a force that oppresses some for the benefit of a few. So when I went to college, I joined the Young Democrats. I started working to get other people elected and thought that my path would be more on the staff side. I went to law school wanting to be a staffer to the in Congress, to a congressional committee. But in law school, Republicans took over Congress and I didn't want to work for them. So I went into private practice, kept working to get other people elected. And then when my delegate, Viola Baskerville, decided to run for lieutenant governor, she asked, do you think you might want to run for office one day? I said, yeah, maybe one day after I get married and have kids and, establish myself. And she said, well, that day is here. So I ran for the House back in 2005 and won. And as you heard, I spent 11 years there, moved over to the Senate when Donald McKeachin was elected to Congress. And then when he passed away in 2022, I realized that serving in Congress was the natural progression of how I could help people. So my childhood dream was kind of right of working in Congress, but I didn't dream then that I would be doing so as a member.
Oh, very impactful stories and very inspirational. Um, while you both are talking, this show is not about me, but there's some parts that you were talking about that I could really resonated with me. So now we're in this show, we always talk about purpose and purpose-driven leadership. So now I'm going to go into the next question, which is, how do you both define purpose-driven leadership? What does that mean to you?
I'll start with this one. I mean, I think for me, my purpose is helping people. And is solving problems, helping improve their lives. I love, digging in when there is a problem that affects people, figuring out who's affected, how do we bring everybody together and solve it. So for me, that is what purpose-driven leadership means is you find what your purpose is, and for me, it's helping people, and you root your work in that purpose, and you don't get distracted. You don't get discouraged. You just keep focusing on what encouraged you to lead to begin with.
Similar to that, I feel like purpose-driven leadership for me is thinking about um, why I decide to do something in the first place. I mean, for me, it's about trying to do good. And coming into this, it was really, for me at first at least, thinking about the problems that existed for me and my family. My daughter had, again, Rett syndrome, and she was denied Medicaid twice before she ultimately got it. And it was about, for at first, really just selfishly, just trying to figure out avenues to be able to help her. But then I realized, my husband and I went to Howard Law together, so he's a lawyer practicing too, and I was thinking, this is so difficult for us. Once we got our bearings straight and started being able to figure out what to do, I wanted to be able to help other people through that process. In fact, I get a lot of calls now about navigating the bureaucracy of Medicaid. So there are, during this campaign, I'll tell you. And the thing is, there are ups and downs with the campaign. There are days where I leave the house and it's dark and I come back home and it's dark. But the thing about the purpose is that when you're kind of in line with what you're meant to do, that fuels you. They often, my team also often jokes with me that, how do you do this when you don't drink coffee? But it's what I'm fueled by wanting to be able to help people. And that is what drives me. And that's what keeps me going in this. So I think when you're talking about kind of driving with your purpose in mind, that's really it for me. You let it lead.
I love that. And so when I listen to you, there's a natural question I have for both of you. How did you discover or find your purpose? How did you know? What led you to that self-discovery? Because there's folks who are going to be listening and go, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, what helped you both?
For me, I don't know that it was one particular thing. I think it's about finding things that you're interested in um and going from there. I mean, I never started out thinking, oh, I was going to be part of the rare disease community, or have part of my goal to work on healthcare advocacy. It's that the things that happened to me, the things that impacted me in my life, led me that way. So I don't think that someone can say, this is the stamp of your purpose, and then and it, for it to be static either. I think it's about letting the things that you're interested in, the things that drive you, take you to that place, and being open to discovering new things about it.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I think for me, again, part of it was rooted in my parents. They were both very community service oriented. My dad was a college professor and a pastor. My mom was a counselor. She ran the TRIO programs at Virginia State, but they were both very active in the community. They were both very active in their fraternity and sorority. So I knew that part of my purpose was to help people and give back. And the more I learned about history, the more I realized that government was a powerful force for change, a powerful force for helping people. But there weren't a lot of people in government who looked like me and lived like me and shared my experiences. And for me, we've heard since we were kids that ours is a government by, of, and for the people. And I came to understand that means that government will only reflect the perspective of and therefore meet the needs of the people who participate. And that's really a big part of the history of our country, is who gets to participate. And so that made me gravitate more towards using public service and government, first by electing other people and then by running myself, to drive that purpose and to effectuate that purpose of helping people.
Again, fantastic answers. Now we're going to dive into, hopefully you did your homework. That was a bad wink, but I tried. What would be your purpose statement? And knowing that, how do you make decisions and actions that align with your purpose? Like, because part of what I tell people in the business world, and when they have small businesses, mid-sized business, nonprofits, is everything should be rooted in purpose, even for an organization, all decisions. So that's why I'm asking the question. If you're like, why is she asking this question? That's why I'm asking the question.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go, Leslie.
Well, I was just going to say, I think for me, it's really do good is the thing that is part of my purpose. And I'll go back to what we were talking about before we started, Tiffany, which was that I did recently Leadership Metro Richmond, LMR, and I was awarded the Leader Who Serves Award. And one of the things in talking to the next class as part of that award was that I talked about how it's kind of redundant to say a leader who serves, because I think of that being, that's what you do as a leader. You're serving. You're either serving the community or serving your organization. And so I think when you're talking about having that type of leadership, you just have to come as you are to it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's your job. I know so many people who have been in a position, sometimes in a position of leadership, who don't necessarily have a purpose to it, but then the title doesn't mean anything. There are other people who may be part of that organization or that company, can drive the purpose without ever having that title, that high title. I've seen stories on television, I'm sure you have too, of people who were, the custodians at a school, who were highlighted on television because of, the work that they did with the students, and making sure that there were positively reinforcing what was happening at school. That wasn't about being the custodian. That was about living in their purpose, and whatever it was, to help people where they are. So I often tell people, you don't need a title to be able to have purpose and to do good work. When I started doing advocacy, although it was influenced by my law degree, it gave me the skill set to be able to advocate and know who to talk to with the Democrats and Republicans, and making sure that we got good work done. But I didn't need a title. I was a mom. I wasn't I wasn't a healthcare expert. I came to that rare disease and healthcare advocacy as someone who was concerned for my community and the community at large. And so you don't need a special title to have that purpose and bring it. You just need the drive and the willingness to get out and figure it out along the way, whatever that means for you. So the purpose is what drives you to that, not the title.
Like that.
Yeah, and for me, I think my purpose statement is to bring my unique perspective to the table to help people and solve problems and be a voice for people who don't have a seat at the table. And that means that I have to, whatever I'm doing, meet people where they are. I learned a long time ago when I first got elected to the House, I was a young Black woman from the most Democratic district in the state in a body that was mostly white Republican men over 50. And I very quickly figured out everybody's political views and how they vote and how they approach issues is shaped by their life experiences and what they know. And so I had to first meet them where they are to understand what makes you think the way you think. Why do you view things the way that you do? Learn their perspective, but I had to bring and share mine and the people that I represent who their perspective's not represented by anybody else in the General Assembly from their life or now in Congress from their life experiences. And when you do that, then more often than not, you find common ground and you can build from that. Where you can't find common ground, you persist until you can get things done. But it also means that I have to help demystify the political process and the governing process. And so I have to share with my constituents what I'm doing and why. And I have to, ask them, what is it you want me to do? And sort of connect the dots between what I do in Washington and their daily lives, what I do in Washington and what happens in the district, and how what happens in the district impacts what's going on in Washington and how I approach that job. But again, at the end of the day, I keep coming back to, why am I there? I'm there to help people and solve problems. And the only way to do that is to be their voice. But first, I've got to listen and understand what it is they need and what it is they expect and want me to do.
With all that you just said, I feel like you teed up the next question perfectly well. So thank you for that, which is, the current political climate is very divisive, which we all know. So how do you believe we can become unified, and how does purpose play a role in that?
First step is listen. First step is recognize everybody has value. Everybody has a life story. Everybody has something that has happened that shapes who they are and what they believe and why they do what they do. And you have to meet them where they are and begin and share where you are and try to find common ground and move forward from that. And I think the vast majority of people, again, speaking for Congress, and this was even true of the General Assembly, the vast majority of people are there for the right reasons. They may have very different points of view on the role of government. They have very different points of view on specific issues based on their experiences. And I can't, even if I disagree with them, I need to be willing to listen. And I need to be able to treat them with the dignity and respect that they are owed as a human being. I think we forget about that sometimes. And I think especially after COVID, when we spent so much time isolated, now people spend most of their time on their phones or on the computer rather than out in the community or talking to people. Social media has made it a lot easier for us to retreat to our tribe and only surround ourselves with people who we agree with. But when you do that, you cut yourself off from so many different perspectives that can enhance your own and can help you solve problems in ways that you had never thought of. So I think it's really important that we just get back to the basics of listening to each other and respecting one another.
I like that.
I couldn't agree more. As I go up and down this district and talk to people in the 18 counties and cities of the first district, there is the Northern Neck, there is the city of Williamsburg, and there are the suburbs of Henrico and Chesterfield, the suburbs of Richmond. And I talk to people, some of whom I agree with, and some of them I don't agree with. And you have to, just like Congresswoman McClellan just said, you have to listen first and foremost. And I think the thing about it for me has been, even in circumstances where I vehemently disagree, I tell people all the time, it's okay to disagree. Disagree with my husband a lot of the time, and I married him, right? It's okay to disagree and to to find ways to connect where you can. And there are folks that have been completely on the opposite end of the political spectrum as I am on certain issues. And we can have a conversation. We may still ultimately disagree in the end, but as Representative McClellan just said, it's like finding that humanity, and we can come to some kind of, at least, we can be, as I often say, adults in the room and have those discussions and respect that I am coming from perhaps a different perspective as someone else. And ultimately, they make the decision of who they want to be able to be representing them. And the thing is, I respect that too. Sometimes democracy is messy, right? We have to we do disagree, and that is okay. But if we're coming at it at a place from a place of respecting each other and learning from each other and listening to each other, that's really, that to me, that is the crux of it. Because when you're starting to listen and learn from one another and recognize the humanity in other people, instead of the fighting and calling people names, you're actually listening to their perspective. And for me, when I was doing that, and talking to legislators on issues that were important to me as just a private citizen, I found that to be the case. Talking to my representatives, Democrats and Republicans, although sometimes they may disagree, you can have a reasonable um, conversation, even though you might ultimately not have a resolution. And I think that is the line of making sure that we're not being in a divisive space. You may not necessarily, you may not always agree, but you can respect each other at the end of the day.
Two follow-up questions to that. The first question is, from your experience in talking with people and then the work you're doing, do you find that there's actually more commonality than divisiveness? And sometimes what people are actually arguing about isn't the foundational problem, but the how to fix the problem? What do you tell me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know what? The thing is, when I start really talking about some of the issues that are relevant, particularly, look, the fact of the matter is, in this district, there are places that are pretty red. When you talk about the Northern Neck in particular, um, I have many conversations with people in, Matthews or Westmoreland County or Lancaster and, the Northern Neck, all those areas. And in the Middle Peninsula, we may disagree about the specifics, but they all care about their kids' education. When we talk about investing in public school education, everybody wants their kids to go to a good school and get a good education. Everyone wants, to be able to go to the doctor that they want to go to and be able to have quality health care and not have to spend tons of money to do it. Now, when we get into the specifics, perhaps people might have differing views on how to make that happen. But at its core, even though, we have the Northern Neck, we have Williamsburg, we have the suburbs of Richmond, but when you break it down, all of the issues are the same. It's the shared humanity that we were talking about. All of the things that we care about are ultimately the same. We care about our seniors being able to live out the rest of their lives with dignity and the health care that they need. They care about their kids in school. They care about safety. They care about being able to make a good living and put food on the table. These are the things that people care about. And yeah, again, sometimes the specifics is what kind of trips people up, or we're arguing about, but ultimately it's all the same things.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my district is the city of Richmond and its suburbs, the Tri-Cities area and their suburbs, and then all of the rural counties, surrounding them down to the North Carolina border. And whether I'm in Brunswick, Surrey, Southampton, Sussex, whether I'm in the city of Richmond, Hopewell, Colonial Heights, it's the same. People, they want to know that they will have a good job that pays well, that their kids have an opportunity to do better than they did, that when they get sick, they can get the care they need without going bankrupt, and they live in healthy, thriving, safe communities. And there are differences in the view of what's the role of government. There are differences in, there's certain issues that people will probably never find common ground on. And I get that. And I usually spend most of my time not talking about that, but those aren't the issues that people, for the most part, are bringing up. And to the point where, believe it or not, I have met Trump McClellan voters. I have, when I was in the House, there were Bob, McDonald McClellan voters. And I was a little surprised by that, but it was because at the end of the day, they recognize I may not agree with you on everything, but I know you're there to help me. I know you're listening to me, and I'd much rather have that than somebody that I don't know is really cares about serving the community and helping people. So now, having said that, there are some people who are in this business for the wrong reasons. There are some people, and I see them, who are here for fame, or they're here to break things. They're here to cause chaos and division, but they're very, very few of those folks. But I don't want to sound like it's all Pollyanna. They are there, but the vast majority of people are in public service for the right reasons.
I like that. I like that heavy dose of realism that you just gave us in the end. No Pollyanna. That's something I say, actually. No Pollyanna. I like that. So knowing what you just said there, for the folks that are, business owners, operating a business in leadership roles that are not government, what kind of golden nuggets can they learn from your experience in politics? Because when you think politics, extremely divisive, like we just talked about, what golden nuggets could they learn from you to apply in their current roles as leaders?
I think it's very similar, whether you're an elected official, whether you're a business leader, whether you're a coach or a teacher. It's all about, it's twofold, right? So there's me as a leader with my team, my campaign team, my staff team, but there's also me as a leader in public service trying to pass public policy. It's about setting the tone. It's about having clear goals, a clear purpose, which we already talked about, and reminding everyone where they fit in meeting that goal or that purpose, and that everybody has value in getting there. I think sometimes we think that being a leader means, well, you tell everybody what to do, but it's not. It's you are leading people to a destination. Whether it's you're passing a bill, whether it's you're, selling widgets, which we love in law school, we love widgets, or you're trying to build something, you are leading other people to a destination. And it's not about you, it's about the destination and the purpose and the team. And that's true no matter what field you're in.
Just so you know, they like widgets in business school too.
Yeah.
Very popular. Leslie?
Wow. Oh, yeah. I think for me, it really goes back to what I was talking about before. I think whatever your industry, and really even outside of your industry, I talk a lot about, when I talk to law students, I talk about, sometimes people think that what their job is their purpose. And for a lot of people, that certainly is true. But your purpose can sometimes be outside of that position. And bringing that to all that you do, I was talking about my statement being, do good. That can be within an industry or outside of it's not necessarily about the title that you have. And so, as I tell people who are thinking about careers and bringing that to whatever they do, you could, like you two were both saying, selling widgets. Um, that might be the thing that you're doing, but your goal in doing that may be to bring more employees to your community, making sure that people in your community have jobs. It may mean paying your team a living wage so that they can do what they need to do for their families and put food on their own tables. What it so it's I think of purpose as something that's much bigger than whatever the thing that you're doing is. And once you're clear on that point, when you're clear on how you want to help not just yourself but your community, then I think it makes it a lot easier for you, no matter what it is that you're selling, or no matter what organization you're leading. It drives you beyond that.
I like that. Good answers, and we got only about watching the time, 4 minutes left. So I'm going to ask a question just to get a pulse, because we all, well, maybe not all of us, but lots of us are doing reading and trying to get a pulse on voters. I'm just curious, what is the number one thing people in your districts are seem to be most concerned about? What's the top thing that you keep hearing about? Is it economy, healthcare, education? What is the number one that you keep hearing about?
Healthcare and the first, and that's kind of a very big topic, but we talk about it in terms in the rural areas, particularly accessibility to healthcare. There are places in the district where you have to go 45 minutes just to get to a maternity ward, and affordability across the board. Making sure that people have access to the prescription drugs that they need at the prices that they can afford. And, there are a lot of folks who are concerned about the dismantling of Roe v. Wade and what that means for women going forward. And because of the Dobbs decision, not only access to abortion, but also the scares and the very real concerns of not having access to IVF. My two daughters were IVF babies, so that's incredibly important to me. And so as we talk about making sure that healthcare is affordable and accessible to all, that's part of what we're talking about. We had several miscarriages and spent tens of thousands of dollars on IVF to ultimately be able to get our baby girls. And I want to make sure that other people have access to being able to have their families in the way that they want to have them and when they want to have them.
I like that.
Sam, I would say very, very close 1 and 2 are lowering costs and healthcare, and particularly lowering healthcare costs. Making sure that we are keeping prescription drug costs at $2,000 cap annual, not just for seniors, which we've done so far, but expanding that to everybody and keeping the cost of insulin low, keeping the cost of access to childcare, housing, groceries low, and making sure that people really have an opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. But it's very closely linked to healthcare and to energy policy, because you can't lower your electric bills if you're not also putting energy policies in place that support energy efficiency programs that help weatherize homes to keep electric demand down. So they're all pretty interconnected. What surprised me the most, though, not just in my district, but I've traveled all over the country for the Harris Walz campaign, is how many people say they don't talk about, when you ask them, what are you most looking forward to? It's not a particular issue. It's, I want to be able to disagree without being disagreeable again. I want politics to be civil again. I want public discourse to be civil again. So I think there's something about people wanting to turn the page on the anger, the division, the chaos, and get back to cooperating to solve problems again.
Well, that leaves us all with a lot of hope. So I like to hear that. That's fantastic. So I always, when I have a really good conversation like this, I like to put you on the spot and say, will you come back on the show at a future date?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay! Okay. Well, thank you both for joining me. This was a really good conversation. And as you can tell, these are deep questions. So we could probably have 50 more questions and break it down a little bit deeper, which I'm sure our listeners would like in the future. So I'm going to conclude today's show with our outro. So if you be patient, I'll just got a few words to say. So thank you for tuning in to Evolve Together with Empower People here on ESPN Richmond, powered by MikeKingBiz. I'm your host, Tiffany Joy Greene, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We hope today's episode inspired you, provided valuable insights, and empowered you to take the next step in your purpose-driven journey. Don't forget to connect with Empower People on social media, share your thoughts, and join the Empower People community, where education, connection, and support is offered to mission and purpose-driven leaders to drive positive impact and empower people. Until next time, keep evolving, stay empowered, and remember that together we can achieve greatness. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode of Evolve Together with Empower People. Let's evolve together.